I'm an attorney over in St. Pete. I'm also an adjunct professor who teaches a course in undergraduate business law. So one of the things, I think the first thing that we have to talk about whenever we're discussing getting into the medical marijuana industry is it is against federal law. And if you come to me or somebody like me, that needs to be one of the first things that we talk about, and it should be on the front of your retainer. Because if you don't tell people that, they're not aware of it, there are risks and consequences involved in this industry. So now having said that, like everybody else here today has said, we don't know what the rules are going to be. The rules have not been written yet. But we can look to other states and what they've done and try to figure out, you know, what is likely going to happen in Florida. And, you know, most likely, well, let me ask you this. Who here has a smartphone on them right now? Or a tablet, or a computer? You can go on sunbiz.org right now and form a corporation. That does not mean that you're going to be able to form that corporation and then get into the marijuana industry. There are certain things that you're going to have to do. There's probably going to be residency requirements. There's probably going to be liquidity requirements that require you to have so much cash on hand. We're probably going to be looking at, you are going to have a license to be engaged in this industry. And like the last speaker said, you're probably going to have to apply. There's going to be a filing fee. If you've been convicted of a felony, you're probably not going to be licensed in this state to get into this business. So these are all things just on the front end that you're going to be faced with overcoming just to get into the business. It's not just, you know, going on Sunbiz, forming a corporation, and start growing marijuana and dispensing it in a treatment center. That's not how it's going to work. So there's going to be a lot of upfront things that you're going to have to do that are going to have to be done right in order to be successful in this business. And that's just the first step. Once you do all of these things and you are set up, the next part of it is to make sure that you're complying with all of the laws that are set forth once the rules do get promulgated. You're going to have this seed to sale tracking system to make sure that product isn't going out the back door. You want to make sure the people that you hire aren't taking any product out the back door. There's security issues that are going to be involved. You probably aren't going to be able to have guns on the premises, so how are you going to keep your product safe? And then there is always the issue of the large safe that you have bolted down that has all the cash, because banks, from what I understand, and I've been doing a lot of research, banks still aren't taking money. So there's a lot of issues that you have to look at before you start really, you know, I think it's very exciting, and I think there's already 21 states doing it. I think we're going to be the 22nd state to do it. But there's a lot of things that are involved before you can just get into this business. It's, you know, like it's been said, you're not just going to go open a storefront and you're going to start dispensing medical marijuana. One of the things Brad was just talking about, there's something called the Cole Memo, and I think somebody brought it up earlier about what happens about a raid when the federal government has raided different dispensaries. And the Department of Justice has issued a memo. It's called the Cole Memo. It was issued in 2013, and it sets forth 8 factors that says, look, if you're complying with these things, then you're not really on our radar. We're not very interested in you. Now, I have to emphasize that that's just a memo, and it's just current policy. It's not a law. It doesn't prevent the DOJ, even if you are complying with these 8 things, it does not prevent the Department of Justice to come in and raid your facility, no matter how legal it is under state law. But, you know, and I'm just going to go through these really quick because I know somebody asked this earlier. As long as you're preventing distribution to minors, you're preventing revenue from going to criminal enterprises, you're not dealing with cartels, you're not diverting marijuana to states that don't allow it, you're preventing state-authorized marijuana activity from being used as a cover or pretext for trafficking other illegal drugs, preventing violence in the use of firearms in the cultivation, preventing drug driving and exacerbation of other adverse public health consequences, growing marijuana on public lands. The Department of Agriculture doesn't want you coming in and using their land to grow your product. And preventing marijuana possession or use on federal property. So as long as you're complying with those and you're a state licensed facility, then currently the United States Department of Justice is not very interested in what you're doing. So you have to keep that in mind. Now, I'm not sure who asked this, but I know this came up earlier too about it's 280E under Title 26. It's what businesses are usually allowed to exempt on their tax returns. Businesses who are involved in the federally illegal sale of drugs can't take these deductions, which are rent, utilities, all these things that you can normally take. The only thing a business can take at this point that I know is cost of goods sold. So if you're purely a grower, then there is no business expense that you can deduct from your tax return. So you need to have a good bookkeeper, a good accountant that's going to go through your stuff and make sure you're complying with those laws. And I need to read the white paper that Brad was talking about to find out a little bit more about that. But I mean, as I stand here right now, all I know under 280E, Title 26, the only thing a business can deduct is cost of goods sold. So that's something to be aware of, because the likelihood of you getting audited, even though you're a licensed medical marijuana provider by the IRS, is likely. You know, it is very likely that you will be audited. So you want to make sure you have a good accountant that knows the laws. So these are just some of the things that have been discussed today and that we think are going to happen. But, you know, until the Department of Health promulgates the rules, and I do need to clear up one thing, they have 6 months to promulgate the rules. If after 6 months the rules have not been promulgated, it's not a free-for-all. Any Florida citizen has the ability to file a motion in a court of law and compel the U.S. Department, or the Florida Department of Health to promulgate those rules. But after 6 months, if they haven't, we can't just start opening dispensaries or treatment centers, excuse me. So, but from what I know, from what I've talked about, colleagues of mine up in the Panhandle, which I have no firsthand knowledge of, apparently these rules are already being worked on. I almost think it's a foregone conclusion that medical marijuana will be passed on November 4th. From what I understand, and I know it was brought up earlier that it's been polling at about 82% in favor. So, but we've just recently had some opposition by the sheriff's departments in the state of Florida who are actively now getting together to oppose the passing of Amendment 2. So we need to be on the forefront. We need to be educated about what it is that we need to do in, one, organizing the businesses under the laws of the state of Florida and under the rules that are going to allow us to do business in the medical marijuana industry. And then two, once we are there, we need to make sure that we're complying with all the laws so we don't run afoul of state law. Federal law is another issue altogether. And until they remove that from Schedule 1 and change the laws, there's still going to be that issue that's kind of always in the background where, you know, you are going to have to look over your shoulder with the federal government. Right now, I don't see any reason why. I mean, the Internal Revenue Service is still able to get your tax dollars from medical marijuana industry. They don't have to do anything because they're not allowing these business expenses. There's no advantage for them to do anything different at this point. So those are just some of the things that I wanted to talk about. I mean, like I said, I think this is very exciting. I do believe Florida is going to be the 22nd state to pass medical marijuana. I think this is a very exciting time for all of us to be involved in this industry. And I think it's also very important that we educate ourselves on what we need to do to make sure that we're doing it correctly. So, and if anybody has any questions, I will try to answer those to the best of my ability.
We're going to keep questions a little bit quick because we have another attorney, Dominic, coming up afterwards.
And I'm excited to hear what Dom has to say.
He may answer your questions, you know, in his presentation. So I'm going to limit it to 3, okay?
Shawn, you said about guns and security.
Yes.
I'm.
Oh, there you are. Okay.
Yes, here I am. I have a concealed weapons permit.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying, well, explain to me, I'm not going to be able to have guns?
I don't know.
Oh,
That's the thing, we don't know. We don't know what the security, you're going to have security, obviously.
sure. Dobermans won't do it.
Right, is it going to be the owners of the facilities that are carrying guns, or is it going to be a third-party security? I don't know. But, a lot of times they don't want, guns and drugs mixing.
And
That's a big no-no.
And when they transport it, I'm a little concerned about that security too.
Yes.
When it's being harvested and then,
Correct.
yeah.
Again, I'm new to Florida, but in my experience, they're going to make you carry guns with it.
I know Georgia just passed a law that, you'd have to carry a gun everywhere, I think.
He sells trained, like personal protection dogs, and he can teach them to, watch your property and run the property line and all sorts of things like that. And he's thinking about moving down to Florida, so he can help people in that way too.
Right. These are all some of the ancillary businesses that Tom was talking about earlier. You've got the security issues. There's just a number of different things that even if you're not directly involved in the medical marijuana industry, you can be involved in another way, especially if you think that the risk isn't worth the reward of being directly involved with growing or selling medical marijuana.
And with applying for a license, are so far in other states, are you required to have like a fully fledged out business plan when you apply for a license, or does that come later?
It would probably be in the best interest to have a business plan when you apply for the license.
And submit it to the state with your request?
Correct, right. Because again, the cleaner the application, the smoother it's going to be. And again, we don't know exactly how it's going to work here, if it's just going to be a straight application, if there's going to be a set number of licenses that the state is going to issue. And then you're going to be dealing with the fact that municipalities can always say, hey, you know what? We don't want it in our city or in our county because it's still against the federal law. So they could enact a moratorium on these types of business, or just straight out refuse to allow these businesses to operate in the municipality. That's why I still don't understand why anybody's buying land anywhere in Florida to conduct these businesses when they don't know which county and which city is going to allow this business to operate. Unless, somebody may know something that I do not, but I wouldn't suggest buying any land at this point to strictly open a medical marijuana facility.
Okay, we got one more in the back here.
Hi, I'm very much interested in getting into the compliance aspect of the medical marijuana industry in Florida. And basically, what I do now, I work for an accounting firm. Technically, I manage an accounting firm, and we form LLCs and corporations through SunBiz as of right now. Basically, what I want to find out is when everything passes, I would like to be able to advise an upcoming business on what licensing and what requirements as far as liquidity or net worth or whatever the case may be, whatever requirements are needed. I'd like to be able to advise a client on how to obtain licensing through the state. What crosses the line when it comes to unauthorized practice of law, basically? Could I show them the statute and just say, I'm not giving you legal advice, but here's the statute, this is what needs to be followed?
The unauthorized practice of law is a third-degree felony, Dominic. If you want to point somebody towards a statute without saying anything else, that's the only thing I would ever advise you to do. That you could really get in.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm asking you the question.
Yeah, I would just, the rule is over there. Take a look at it. If you have any questions, consult an attorney.